Hi, this is Wayne Zell, and welcome to Blueprint for Wealth, a video blog that's designed to help you realize your personal dreams of wealth and freedom, featuring special guests and educational content that is designed to give you stuff that you might be interested in. It's brought to you by Zell Law. We're a law firm located in Reston, Virginia and Savannah, Georgia, with clients all across the country. And if you'd like to know more about us, visit us on the web at zelllaw.com. Also, if you'd like to hear prior podcasts, go to Apple Podcasts and search for Blueprint for Wealth. Today, in honor of all women entrepreneurs, I'm going to be interviewing a good friend of mine, and that's Deb Wetherby. Welcome, Deb. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Wayne. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Deb is an interesting character. She is the founder of Wetherby Asset Management. But before that, she was a graduate of the University of Virginia, undergrad, where we met and we went to school together and we were classmates together and even studied for the CPA exam together. And after that, she went to Cal Berkeley to get her Master's of Business Administration and Finance. So she's got a long track record, but she did Wetherby Asset Management for a long time. Before we talk about Wetherby Asset Management, Deb, tell us a little bit about your background. I know you have a really interesting background where you sort of saw the world.
Yeah, my dad worked for General Electric, and he was part of that era of management where you had to move up. So my family moved every 2 to 4 years. And one of the places we lived was Ireland. And we were lucky enough to be there for 4 years. And every year the company would pay for us to come back to the States. And instead, my parents would take us camping in Europe. I'm one of 5 kids, so we never stayed in hotels. We always camped. And so by the time I was 10, I had seen almost all of Western Europe and experienced it from campgrounds, from sort of the more local perspective, shopping in local markets and really being with people from many other countries. And I'm convinced that it really was part of what gave me a love of other economies, other markets, sort of a more global perspective, is seeing at a very young age just this mix of people and cultures and markets.
I remember you telling me a story about your dad. He was into economics and he got you thinking about economics at a really young age.
Yeah, so we had an exchange student that lived with us from the Philippines, and uh, when I was about 13, and I told my parents I wanted to go visit her, and they said I could go if I earned the money. So I started working when I was 14,
Mm.
and then my dad said I could invest alongside him with money that I had saved, in order to make money faster. Because, when I was 14, you couldn't build an app and make a lot of money. You could, there were limited things that you could do. So I started investing and, fell in love with the markets. I think that was probably my dad's intention. Um, but it worked. And I did go to the Philippines for 6 weeks when I was 16, which is still amazing to me that my parents
Let you
let
do
me
that.
do that on my own. But I was really determined, and that was one of those other things that really taught me I could set a goal and achieve it. Uh, I loved markets, but it also taught me I needed more education, and it played a big role in what I chose to study in college. As you know, I was a double major in accounting and finance. And
Hmm.
I chose accounting because I felt like it's the language of business. And if I
Absolutely.
can learn that language, I can really better understand business. And it was such a fantastic background. I mean, I'm sure, you feel the same way, Wayne, with
I
what
do.
you do, but it taught me to understand business at a very foundational level. And really, to this day, if the numbers work, I can understand it. If the numbers don't work, and there are periods of time in the markets where the numbers don't work, it's confounding to me. I mean, I just uh, it seems crazy to me when the numbers don't work.
It's funny that you mentioned that accounting is the language of business. My dad said the same thing to me when I told him I wanted to go into music, and he said, "No, how are you going to pay for school?" Um, and I ended up going into accounting, but I'm grateful for that because it's the language of business, and we both use it in our respective business practices today. Um, I saw you spend a short period of time in one of the big firms, but then after that, at a very relatively young age, you started your own registered investment advisory firm, an RIA, in a very male-dominated industry at the time, at least, and it still is fairly male-dominated. Um, how did you get into investment management in the first place? What lured you into that with that tremendous background in finance?
Yeah, I was kind of a what I would call a reluctant entrepreneur. I'd spent all this time and energy getting to Wall Street. That was kind of my dream, was to have this incredible job on Wall Street. And, I was fortunate enough out of grad school to get hired at one of the top Wall Street firms. And I had, an incredible job serving wealthy families at one of the top firms. There were about 200 of us worldwide that did what I did, and 14 of us were women. So it was
Wow.
I felt really lucky to have gotten there. But the problem was I ended up hating my job. And, when you have, a top job, and it's not a fit for you, it's not like you can change firms.
Right.
It's you sort of have to rethink everything. And so I took a year off and traveled. And I was going to move to Asia. And I actually had a job. I had 3 job offers in Asia. Um,
Hmm.
and what happened is I ended up staying in the US and getting married. I had met my now ex-husband at the time, uh, the guy I was really involved with, and he asked me to marry him, and he said, "But I don't want to go to Asia." So I stayed and got married, and then I needed to decide what to do. And I went to work for a small firm that did investment banking in Asia, but also did fee-based money management.
They were
And
ahead
I
of their
realized
time at
I
that time,
don't,
right? I mean, they would have
I'm
been ahead of
sorry,
their time. They would have been ahead of their time doing fee-based management in those
they
years.
were ahead of their time. And I realized I didn't care at all about investment banking in Asia. I mean, conceptually it's interesting, but you're narrow and deep on one industry, one company, to the exclusion of most other things.
Right.
Um, but fee-based money management, I just loved. It was sort of the antidote to the 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 Wall Street culture that wasn't a fit for me. And but the problem was that firm had very different values than I had, and it was sort of there are these moments in life where you realize, um, these are the things that are important to me. And one of the things I realized in that situation is that I'm a person that has to live in alignment with my values, that I just can't stand a lot of dissonance between, what I believe is right and the way I'm operating in the world. And I had some of that realization when I was on Wall Street. That's part of why I wasn't happy there. On Wall Street, everything was about money. You could be a terrible human being, and if you were a big producer, you were considered successful, and that sort of drove me crazy. At this small firm, uh, there were there were things that they did, pitting people against each other and other things that I just felt this is not right. So I realized, this fee-based money management thing is great, but I cannot stay at this firm. So I went to a number of other firms that did, at that time, which was 1990, fee-based money management existed for institutions, but not for individuals.
Right.
And so I went to a number of firms that did this for institutions. And I said, I think you should start a division working with individuals and hire me to run it. Which I look back on that and I think, oh my God, hubris writ large. I just can't even believe that I would do that. But, I went
I
to,
believe it. I
I
believe it.
figured, why not? I went to all these firms and said, you know, this is a great idea. You should do this. And they said, well, we really like working with institutions. It is a great idea, but individuals are pesky. They ask a lot of questions. They're subject to taxes. There's a lot of hand holding.
Right.
We don't want to work with individuals. So, all these firms said, no, it doesn't make sense. And and uh but they all said you should start a firm. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. No one's going to go to a startup firm. You need to have, this is financial services. You need to have, something, a brand behind you. And they said, no, you really should start something. And so I said, well, okay. I had this group of clients that had followed me from my Wall Street firm through my year off to this other small firm. And I thought, well, I'll just go talk to them and see, and they'll tell me it's a crazy idea, right?
Maybe
And
not.
so I went to this group of clients forgetting that they were all entrepreneurs, right? And they all said, this is a great idea, you should absolutely do this. And I said, why is this a great idea? It seems crazy to me. Why would you do this? And they said, then you'll be settled, then you'll be happy, then, because they could see that my values were consistent with their values.
You've
And
mentioned your values a few times, and how would you boil them down into three or four primary values that you abide by today that drove you to this conclusion?
yeah, well, I would say operating with integrity always, putting the client first always, treating other people with respect, uh, having a culture of teamwork and collaboration, being a lifelong learner, recognizing that you recognizing what you know and recognizing what you don't know, and being honest about it. And even today, I say, my clients don't expect me to know everything, but they do expect me to know what I know, or to find, if I don't know it, to find someone
Who
who
does?
knows it.
Right.
And so It's so those things to me are sort of basics and um, really important.
Weatherby has been really involved and at the forefront of impact investing, which is a really catchy phrase, but it has great meaning. Can you give us a little bit of background on what impact investing means to your firm and why it's so important to you, why you got into that in the first place?
Yeah. So impact investing, you think of it as an umbrella term that covers a lot of different things to different people. To us, what it means is asking your investments to do more than just produce risk adjusted returns. It's asking those investments also to have social impact or to make a difference in the world. And they can do it two different ways. They can either do it by having great business practices, or they can do it by having products or services that are great and profitable but address an issue in the world. So
Climate change.
they make wind turbines,
Right.
or they create life-saving medical treatments, or uh whatever it is. And we especially like things where the value is created or the profit driver is connected to the social purpose. And so the way we approach it is we want clients to be able to not compromise any of their other objectives, whether it's return or risk or tax efficiency or liquidity or income or any of those other objectives. And we want them to be able to incorporate things that reflect their values. And
Okay.
we got into it really because our clients are in the fortunate position of having more than they need for themselves and more than they need for their family. And so many of our clients are very philanthropic. And as a part of their philanthropic journey, they recognize that they don't want their portfolio to be working against what they are doing in their philanthropy. They want it to be working in concert with what
Wow.
they're doing in their
That's so
philanthropy.
well said. I really appreciate the way you've linked that to the charitable goals or philanthropic goals of the clients that you represent. Along those lines, within I guess the umbrella of impact investing is something called a B corporation, which I'll talk about after we're done today in greater detail, how they work, why, but you all are a certified B corporation. What does that mean?
Well, it's a certification from a nonprofit that basically says you care about more than the bottom line, that you are part of an ecosystem where you care equally about clients, about employees, about the community, and about the business itself. And you keep your original legal business entity. So if you're a LLC or an S corp or a C corp, whatever you are, a
Mhm.
partnership, you still have that traditional legal entity. This is just a certification that layers on top of that, and it's about 80 different questions that you have to answer. That I mean, we originally did it because we felt like answering these questions would help us be better, would help us evolve. And so it's everything from how you treat employees and what kind of voice employees have in the business, to whether you recycle, to what role do you play in the community.
Awesome.
And so we felt like it was very consistent with our values.
Hmm.
And it, as I said before, the process itself would be very productive in helping us evolve.
It sounds like it, and now you all have evolved to the point where you've joined forces with a very large organization out of Washington State, Laird Norton. How is your vision changing? Will it change? And what inspired this massive change to join forces with such a dominant player on the West Coast? You all basically dominate the West Coast now. There's very few people of your size out there. So, what was the impetus, I guess, for pursuing this?
Yeah, well, a driver for us is that we wanted to be able to deliver more to our clients. And, to do that, we can either build it ourselves or we can rent it or we can buy it or we can partner and deliver it. And we decided to look at all of those options as we were thinking about how we can deliver more to our clients. And we got to know Laird Norton, the family and their business over time. And one of the things that we found was that their culture and their values was very much in alignment with ours. And you know,
Which
it,
is
it
hard to find.
otherwise would have been a non-starter.
It's really hard to find in
Really hard
your
to find.
industry because I've
Yes.
represented a lot of folks in your industry over time, and I work with a lot of different RAs and investment advisors. And let me just put it this way: it's such a refreshing thing to see the marriage of two value-oriented companies, and I'm hopeful that it's working out for you.
It's been great, and we are in the co-creation process, and it has really, we're having fun. It's really working out well, and uh, you know there are a lot of things that were just as I expected. I think the biggest surprise for me is how kind the people are. There's a genuine kindness and caring in their culture that is, just a lovely thing that you don't always see in business and in particular in financial services.
Yeah, I mean, that is an attraction not only to clients, but to employees. It'll keep people there and allow you to grow over time methodically and organically as opposed to looking at outside sources of funding to do that, and they don't need it. And the beauty of it is that you guys have a great marriage. I'm hoping and wishing all the best to you going forward in this because it's very exciting. It was exciting to learn about your business and working with you towards that combination, and it's great to hear that things are working out for you so well.
Well, thanks, Wayne. We couldn't have done it without your help. So
Thank
I,
you.
I really, really appreciate all you did to make it work in the
Thank
process.
you.
So
So, if you had one last word of advice that you had to give to a young entrepreneur or a woman entrepreneur in particular, what would that be?
well, I have a couple of things. One is we wrote a business plan every year. And I'm not talking about a, 3-inch thick thing. I'm talking about looking at, this is where we are, having a realistic evaluation of where you are now and what your strengths and weaknesses are. This is where we want to go. And then your plan is how you're going to get there. And I really think a written plan every year is part of what made us intentional about our growth and our evolution rather than reactive. So I to me that is an it's not an easy thing, but it's a worthwhile thing that you can do as you're growing your business. And um, in terms of women entrepreneurs, what I would say is in my industry, we're 21% of the industry, so we are still very much a minority. And um, I think you can have a chip on your shoulder about it, or you can use it to your advantage. And I've always felt like it's a burden to walk around with a chip on your shoulder. I mean, uh, you know, I've had lots of experiences. I could tell a million stories, but the point is, it's about how you approach it. And when I encountered it, I thought about what is the crux of this issue and how can I make sure that doesn't happen again? How can I be, if people make a prejudgment about me, how can I be um, memorable in that moment, take the high road so that they don't do that again. The next time they encounter that situation, they don't do that again. So I would say to women, every generation it gets better. And in my industry, it's an incredible industry for women. I think women are so well suited to working, uh, holistically with clients. Um, so I think lots of firms are looking to add women to their teams right at the moment. So I would say seize the opportunity, take advantage of it, um, you know, and you know, make sure that you are competent, confident, and caring. And if you do all those things, I think you're going to be successful.
That is awesome. And I think everyone should listen to this, not just the women out there, the men who are interested in understanding the challenges that women face and have faced over the decades can be overcome with optimism, which is what Deb Wetherby has shown us. So thank you so much. And thanks for being a special guest on Blueprint for Wealth. We really appreciate it.
Great to see you.
It's great to see you too. And everybody, stay tuned for the educational moment where I'm going to dig into a little bit more about B corporations, which Wetherby Asset Management is one. You could be one too if you satisfy the criteria. Stay tuned. Hi, this is Wayne Zell, and you're watching Blueprint for Wealth. And today we're going to talk about B corporations, also known as benefit corporations. And we're going to compare and contrast them to public benefit corporations, which are adopted by statute in about 39 of the 50 states in the US, as well as the District of Columbia. So let's turn to that. First, what is a benefit corporation? A benefit corporation is really a legal tool that creates a foundation for a long-term mission alignment and value creation that focuses on stakeholders other than just your shareholders. It's designed to create flexibility when you're evaluating a potential sale or liquidity option, and it gives a business with a mission-driven life post-IPO, post-acquisition, etc. Directors of traditional for-profit corporations and companies are required to maximize financial returns to shareholders, the people who own the stock in the company. The single focus is known as shareholder primacy, and it's a very inflexible framework if you study this carefully. It does not allow for-profit entities whose mission and impact is other than focusing on shareholders. A benefit corporation, on the other hand, allows a corporation to opt out of the shareholder primacy model and opt in to stakeholder governance. What I mean by that is a company is required to take into consideration anyone that is materially affected by the company's decision making, like the employees, your customers, the community, and the wider society and environment as a whole. Benefit corporations effectively are traditional corporations and LLCs with modified obligations and are committed to higher standards of purpose, accountability, and transparency. On the purpose side, the goal is to create a general public benefit, which is either a material positive impact on society and the environment, or it's an obligation to operate responsibly and sustainably, depending on where you're incorporated. Accountability focuses on expanding the obligations of boards of directors and the managers of the entity. A board must consider, as a benefit corporation, environmental and social factors as well as the interests of the shareholders. It gives directors and officers legal protection to pursue a mission and vision that considers the impact of their business on society, on the environment, on the local community, on customers, and not just the shareholders. And then in terms of transparency, benefit corporations are required to report on their progress as they try to achieve a general public benefit. The reporting requirements vary from state to state, but many are required to use a third-party standard to measure their performance and annually report to the public and their customers. There's various guidebooks out there available, and you should check out the bcorporation.net website, which is hosted by B Labs, which is a 501c3 charitable organization dedicated to the proliferation and growth of B corporations. Now, there is a difference between public benefit corporations. As I mentioned, many states have adopted statutes that allow for the creation of a public benefit corporation. So if you're a regular corporation, you can elect to be treated as a public benefit corporation, but you may have certain requirements that you have to meet under state statute. To be a certified B corporation, you have to probably qualify as a public benefit corporation and then do additional stuff to satisfy the requirements of B Labs certification. And so they're often confused. They share a lot in common. They're complementary, but there are differences. On the accountability side, benefit corporations and certified B corporations, basically the directors are required to consider the impact on all stakeholders, and that includes the consumers, the workers, the environment, etc. That's a similarity. There's no difference really between the accountability requirement for PBCs and B Corps. On the transparency front, both a public benefit corporation and B Corp must publish a public report of the overall social and environmental performance assessed against a third-party standard. Now, that third-party standard, for example, in the state of Delaware, they're not required to report publicly or against a third-party standard, but many states do require that, and clearly the certified B Corp does require that. Their performance of their mission is self-reported. And this is where they differ. Public benefit corporations differ from B Corps. Public benefit corporations, it's self-reporting. So they have an internal obligation to do this for the stakeholders. To maintain your certification as a B Corp, you must achieve a verified minimum score on a B impact assessment of 80 points. And recertification is required every 3 years against a changing standard as society changes. And availability, well, public benefit corporations are available for corporations in almost all U.S. states. They're also available in British Columbia, Canada, and some countries worldwide. Certified B Corp status is available to every business, regardless of their corporate structure, so they can be an LLC, or their country of incorporation. The cost varies significantly between a public benefit corp and a certified B Corp. The filing fees for public benefit corps vary from state to state, but they usually range from $70 to $350 extra to be treated as a PBC. However, B Lab certification fees range from $1,000 at a minimum to $50,000 a year based on your revenues. And the reason is there's a lot of work that goes into the certification process from B Lab, so they need to be able to charge for the certification process. And then the role of B Lab, which is a 501c3, they help develop the model legislation that's been adopted in probably 39 states with some variances from state to state. And they also offer a free reporting tool to meet the transparency requirements that B Lab likes to see for its certification, but B Lab doesn't have any role in oversight of a public benefit corporation. When you are a certified B Corp and you get that certification status, B Lab is the certifying body, and they offer access to the certified B Corporation logo, a portfolio of services that can be provided, and a vibrant community of practice among B Corps across the country and across the world. If you want to know more about B Corps, I suggest you visit usca.bcorporation.net, and it'll tell you more about benefit corporations, how they operate. And in fact, there's a great tool that they have. B Lab offers a tool that you can insert your state, the type of entity you are, and they will tell you the requirements for your organization. So that's all about B Corps. Thanks for listening to Blueprint for Wealth, and I hope you got something out of this, and maybe you'll become a B Corp someday. Talk to you next time on Blueprint for Wealth. I'm Wayne Zell.